Hey there, folks. Welcome. I am Anika Larsen. I'm an actor and a singer. I am the mother of two little boys who are 4 and 6 and darling/exasperating, and I am your host of Meet the Parent. New York City Children's Theater started this series a few years ago to talk to parent artists about how life in the theater affects their parenting and how parenting affects their life in the theater. Now, real quick, for those of you who are unfamiliar, New York City Children's Theater's mission is to promote children's literacy and social development through accessible professional theater productions and arts and education programs. The result is empathetic, creative, independent thinkers who make a positive impact on their world. I am a board member of New York City Children's Theater, and I joined the board only partly because the two first professional productions that my little boys happened to see were both New York City Children's Theater productions, but also, hey, Glenn, the problem is, you guys, I can't see my script when these pictures are up, which is tricky. Let's figure out how I can do that. There we go. All right, sorry about that. Hey, this is an important sidebar. We are the only ones in New York City who do a whole season of original new works for families. But I also joined because using theater to serve and help others is something I am wicked passionate about. And New York City Children's Theater does extraordinary outreach in public schools and in homeless shelters. And they've created an innovative new program called Trauma Toolkit for Educators that helps people work with children who have experienced trauma. Now, here's the great news. You don't have to be in the New York City area to benefit from New York City Children's Theater's programming. There is so much on our website for kids and parents, literally everywhere. There's the Creative Clubhouse section with free activities and behind the scenes videos. And if you've got little kids, you can sign up for interactive Zoom classes with the fabulous Miss Caitlin, who my boys adore. Every session has a different theme. And this month we are there there she is. We are there every Wednesday with Miss Caitlin celebrating Black History Month. Another terrific offering on the website for free is Start the Conversation, which is videos and activities and resource guides for families to help parents talk to their kids about subjects that might feel tricky, like racism or gender identity. You guys, it is beautifully, gracefully done. Just last week, my boys and my husband and I, we all watched the latest video on immigration and refuge, and it led to a really great, really thoughtful conversation with our little boys. And all of this is at NewYorkCityChildren'sTheater.org. So check it out, tell a friend. All right, now, before we bring on our guests, here to pop in and say hi is the founder and artistic director of New York City Children's Theater, Barbara Zinn Krieger. Come on, Barbara. There she is.
Great.
Hello. Can you, there you are.
I finally got myself in. Hello.
There you are. I know we should all start off and we should make a grand entrance like this somehow to feel like we're.
That was my grand entrance. And thank you so much, Anika. And thank you for being part of our family. It's just so wonderful to have you on the board and doing things like this. We never would be able to find such wonderful people to interview except we have you. And it's our 25th anniversary. So it's a wonderful time to have you. And I'm here to tell everybody that we are finally going to be doing 2 world premieres of live theater this year, starting with Dory, Fantasma, which is a new family musical about a young girl who needs to use her big imagination to save the day and navigate her relationship with her siblings. The show is based on the popular children's book by Abby Hamlin, written by Russ Kaplan and Sarah Wordsworth, Broadway writers, and the creators of our 2014 production, Dear Albert Einstein, and directed by Michelle Tattenbell. Dory Fantasmagoria will be playing at Theater Row from March 20th through April 10th and is best for ages 4 to 8.
We will be there. Can't wait.
Hope so. I hope everybody will be there. And then in May, we will be bringing Maya Angelou's iconic book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, to life on stage in a one-woman show. It's adapted by award-winning playwright Idris Goodman and directed by Kalia Davis. I Know Why the Cage Birds Sing uses all the words in the book. The prose directly comes from Angelou's groundbreaking and controversial book and introduces a new generation to this American literary icon. The show is best for ages 16 and up and is playing at Theater Row from May 20th to June 5th. And you can learn more about both of these shows and more about NYCCT events on our website, NewYorkCityChildren'sTheater.org.
Wonderful. Barbara, look what you created, and it's 25 years old now, and look what's happening.
Oh, look, it's what we created. I may have started it, and I'm thrilled that I did, but there are all 16 on the staff and 17 on the board, and we are all thrilled. And
your baby's growing up.
And the baby is growing up, and it's wonderful. After 25 years, it's about time.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you for telling us all about that. It's so exciting, live theater again.
Can't wait for this next thing. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right, folks, time for the main event. I do want you to know, if you have questions of your own at any time, you can feel free to type them in the chat and I will ask these questions for you. Okay, so please do. We would love to take your questions. So if at any point along the show you have a question, type it in the chat and we will ask Anne or Audra. All right. You guys, I had a really hard time trying to condense these two women's careers into short bios. So finally, I just had to reckon with the fact that I'm going to have to leave a ton out for the both of them. It is what it is. In the interest of time, forgive me. Here we go. Anne Harada. Anne, please come out and show yourself. There she is. Hi, Anne.
Hello.
Anne Harada has been on Broadway in M. Butterfly, Seussical, Les Mis, 9 to 5, Cinderella, and of course, she created the role of Christmas Eve, the therapist on Avenue Q. And I remember the first time I saw you do this bunches of times, but I remember the first time I saw you do it and that moment where you turn down stage and really start to sing The More You Love Someone, I realized that not metaphorically, literally, my jaw dropped. Like, I remember thinking, jaws really do drop. That was like probably the only time that's ever happened to me. So you were so fantastic in that show. What a joy, really.
Thank you very much.
She was also on
sharing that with me as well.
I'm not sure I ever told you that. She was on the TV show Smash. And if you haven't seen her in Schmigadoon, I'm telling you, she is worth getting Apple TV for. Like tonight after this, go watch it. Anne is the mother of Elvis, who is 17 years old. All right, so you've probably seen Audra McDonald. Audra, please come say hi. There she is. Hello. On her TV shows Private Practice or The Good Fight, or maybe in an opera, or maybe on one of her many concerts across the country, but she will always be Broadway to us. She has starred in Carousel, Masterclass, Ragtime, Marie Christine, Raisin in the Sun, 110 in the Shade, Porgy and Bess, Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill, Shuffle Along, Frankie and Johnny and the Claire de Lune. And thanks to these performances, she has won 6 Tony Awards. 6! Audra, your house could not get through the metal detector at the airport. So I hope it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Well, Audra is a founding member of Black Theater United, whose mission is to inspire reform and combat racism within the theater community and throughout the nation. Audra is the mother of Zoe, who turns 21 on Valentine's Day, and Sally, who is 5, and she is the stepmother of Bridger and Sawyer. Thank you for being here, Audra.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And I'm a huge fan of both of yours, Anne and Anika. And I'm already trying to figure out when I can bring Sally to see the next production here. I think.
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk to you about that after because I have plans, a big plan.
Okay, fabulous. I love it.
Broadway Mama's field trip. Yes. All right, let's dive in. So, ladies, the first question that I always ask is actually a question that I am asked every single time I take my kids to the pediatrician for their yearly checkup. I get these, I don't know if you guys have ever had to do this, but they give me these questionnaires every time that asks questions about where they are developmentally, like can they hop on one leg, or can they say a sentence that has 3 words in it or whatever? It changes each time, obviously. But the one question that is always the same is the last question. And it is always, what do you like about your child? And every time I am moved, and the first time I started to cry, I thought, how lovely that my pediatrician thinks it is so important to my child's whole health to know what their parent likes about them. There's just the loveliness of that. So I would like to ask you guys, what do you like about your kids? Anne, you want to go first?
I guess. I just have to say that we're kind of at that stage right now where there's so much hostility kind of like coming at me all the time.
So liking it is sort of a challenge right now. That's fair. I'm sure
what do I
everyone
like? First of all, he's very bright and very funny. And I'd like to think I had something to do with some of that. There's never been a moment in his development at any stage of the game where he didn't surprise me with what he knew, what he retained, what he thought was important to share with the world. And that, I think, is a huge advantage. He's such a pain in the butt. But I just think that he's such a good person. And I remember one time he had gone to a funeral service for my friends. These other kids that he knew, with their grandmother had passed away, and he was at the service, and I wasn't there, but Peter was there, and a lot of our other friends were there, and people were like, he's so compassionate. He gave me a big hug when he saw how sad I was. And, I just thought that's what I want. It's like, I want a kid with empathy, especially since very early on in his development, people were saying, he might be on the spectrum. He doesn't have the same kind of communication skills like the other kids seem to have. And so I was very concerned for a while, but I guess he's overcome that, and I'm very happy about that.
I love that. Audra, what do you like about your kids?
Well, it's interesting. I always want to be respectful of the fact that my stepsons, they have a mom. They have a mom who is devoted and dedicated to her boys, and they are 21, well, almost 21, and 17, almost 18. But I've also been in their lives since they were 3 and 6, and I've loved watching them grow into these young men. I just wanted to lead with that because I don't often talk in public about my stepsons. I do that out of respect for their mother. I want it, and for them, that I don't want it to look like I'm trying to get in the middle of that relationship in any way. But I'm really amazed at the men they've become, and they are very empathetic and courteous and smart. And they have their dad's sense of humor. Will is such a clown, and they have that from him. And the way they are with their little sister. They have very different relationships with Sally, but they've blossomed into very loving relationships with her, which is lovely. So I want to say that about my stepsons up front. My daughter Zoe, who's going to be 21 on Monday. I don't know how I have a 21-year-old child because I'm only 23, so I don't know how that happened.
Weird.
It's so weird. She is just she cannot go into a room and not make a friend. She is just the most outgoing, lovely, kind, energetic soul. She's very smart and empathetic as well, but she just comes out of any room and has made like 16 friends. And I love that about her and for her. And she wasn't always that way. She was very shy and suspicious when she was like 5 and 6. And I have many pictures of her just sort of giving people the side eye. And she was doing this a lot, but she's really, she's an amazing woman. And so that's what I like most about her. Of course, I love them all to death. And Sally is just the little engine that could, and she's just, I don't know how I ended up pregnant with her. I mean, I know how it works, but just the fact that I thought my eggs were doing a fire sale at the end there. I guess that's how she took. But Will and I look at her and we're like, this soul was meant to be here. She's just, and she's hyperactive. She's ADHD, and so that we know already about her. It's what I had as a kid, so I'm very aware of it, and sometimes that can be a challenge. But her light is so bright and so full, and I love that so much about her. And on days it can be hard, but I cannot wait to see the person she becomes and the light that she brings into the world. So that's my four in a nutshell.
I love that. I love that. You allude to that you weren't expecting her, which kind of leads me into my next question that I am because I've never had this conversation. It's a hard one to have because it's hard to find enough people to have a conversation about it. And I've never seen this conversation. So I'm very excited to do this with you guys, which is we all belong to this very unique club that all three of us were pregnant doing Broadway shows. And let's discuss. Let's get into it. First of all, let's all say how long we were pregnant and what show. So I did 6 months of being pregnant doing Beautiful, the Carole King musical. And you were doing Avenue Q. And I've heard rumors about how long you did it, but I need to know.
Okay, well, I had this brilliant idea that I was going to be in the show and then take a month off, right the last month before I was going to give birth. And what happened was I left the show and a week later I gave birth.
That's what I heard. And I've always been like, that's bonkers.
But he was early and whatever, like you plan, and then it all goes to hell. It's fine. But to me, and Audra, of course, has done extraordinary work, pregnant and not pregnant. But for me, the thing about Avenue Q was always just about climbing those stairs, really big. And, they had to set up like a little milk crate on the deck for me to sit in between scenes because I just couldn't get anywhere. Yeah. And, Anika knows there was no backstage space in that theater at all to like hang out. So, but I was just so desperate. I was just like, please, I'll take anything. Give me anything.
That's bonkers. So you were full on like 36 weeks or something.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Audra, how long did you do it for? But by the way, like, yes, stairs and beautiful. There was nothing challenging for me really physically. And you were dancing in Shuffle Along, like dancing, like Savion Glover, scaring no one, dancing. So tell us the story of all that.
That was pretty crazy. I think my plan was to leave the show and then come back. And then of course they closed the show and because of my pregnancy, but I think we closed the show at the end of July and I gave birth at the middle of October. So I was 6 months, almost 6 months, something like that. It was challenging. When I gave birth to my first child, I went into labor when I was only 5.5 months pregnant. And so I ended up on bed rest for 3.5 months with Zoe. And so being that I was geriatric pregnancy, boy, I loved being told that every time you went to an appointment. That was fun. Being reminded of how old you were. It's like, yeah, I know. But at any rate, they need to come up with a better name than that. But
absolutely, that's not cool. It's not cool. Both of mine were geriatric as well.
Yeah. But it's so crazy, right? But then, so I was very concerned that I might have that experience with Sally. So I was very, very frightened doing the show while pregnant.
Of course.
And I did have some scares, actually. I thought I actually miscarried one night after my big solo. I went off stage and had assumed I've miscarried and ran to the doctor and surprisingly, I hadn't, but we thought I had. And then I had another night too where I was tap dancing and then something felt really weird and I had to leave the show at intermission. They rushed me off to the doctor again because something didn't feel right. But they had to keep adding panels, as you guys know, to your costumes. That's always fun. We're like, got to bring you in for another fitting. We got it. And then like some outfits, they just had to change completely. And then I had the big old bands, like the belly bands supporting. I had two big belly bands supporting in the front. And then I had knee braces because I was losing all the fluid in my knees.
Oh.
No, the opposite. I was gaining too much fluid in my knees, which I have drained periodically during the show.
Oh,
So
brutal.
it was crazy. It was crazy.
But honestly, the beautiful commitment to both your daughter and to the show, you know, sort of both alongside each other. Yeah. And also how meant to be she clearly was. Like, she was like, I'm arriving.
Oh yeah, she's like, get ready, I got plans. So
yeah. Wow. I hope this isn't too much information for me to share about you, Audra. It feels like you're fine with it. But I remember bumping into you at one point, and you were pregnant and you were doing Shuffle Along, and you knew I had done Beautiful Pregnant. And you said to me, were you just burping all the time on stage? And I was like, yes, I had all the gas all the time on stage.
oh yeah.
Shamelessly. But I'm curious, like, so like the symptoms, the crazy, like how, especially Anne, you almost gave birth on Avenue Q. But I know for me, one of the weirdest ones was, and I finally, because nobody had heard of it, none of my midwives, none of the doctors, nobody I even asked had ever heard of this symptom. So finally you can go on the internet and always find somebody who knows what you're talking about. So I wasn't the only one, but I guess it's rare. But you know, like when you're on the plane and you get the, you know, or you have a cold and there's the congestion in your ear and you have to pop it. I had that going on all the time, but like in and out, like bad radio reception, just living life. And so I would go out and I'd start to sing and not really be able to hear the orchestra and sort of start to panic, but say, Anika, it would be harder for you to sing it in a different key now. You've been doing
Right.
and sing it in you're singing it in the right key. You must be with the orchestra. Just breathe and just do it. But yeah, it was bonkers the way that like it affects your voice. I mean, what about you guys? How is it affecting your voice? And then I know for me, I was like, but I have to be tough, and I can't, for women, I have to show we can do this pregnant. So I can't show any signs of weakness. And so I'm wondering if, I don't know what that means for you guys. And
Well, Anika, I had one song, and I
well,
I really didn't have that much to carry in Avenue Q. But you know, of course I worried about it, but I was more worried honestly about peeing on myself.
yeah, that's fair.
Just kind of like the way the costume fit on me, and the fact that when I got pregnant, my dresser was the one who pointed it out. She was like, your boobs are getting really big. And I was like, you know what I mean? Because I sort of thought I might be, but I hadn't really confirmed anything. And then she was like, you better go to the doctor. Your boobs are really big.
Your dresser was your pregnancy test? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, she knew, like, she could tell. She was so used to, she just was so used to seeing me, you know what I mean? And like, I was just like, oh, okay, fair, you know?
Oh, that's so funny. I was going to
And
ask.
then we kept it under wraps for as long as we possibly could, because the cast wanted to renegotiate our contracts together as a group. And I didn't want to be like, yes, I'm pregnant. You know, like, I just thought, like, just don't bring that into the equation. Let's just pretend like everything's fine.
Right.
And it was around the time of the Tonys. And so to be pregnant around Tony time, getting up at, you know, all hours in the morning to do TV press.
Yeah.
I was just like, I am so tired, and my boobs are enormous, apparently. But like, you know, but like, to me, this is just par for the course. That's just everybody pregnant, I think. I mean, what do I know? But I just, you know, I was also obviously a geriatric pregnancy, and everything was new. Like, everything, I didn't know what to expect, and nobody told me. And that really was the part that I was like, really, none of you people could bother to tell me that weird things were going to happen to me? Did anybody tell you about that bloody cottage cheese part of the pregnancy? Because nobody told me.
1,000 of the symptoms that everybody talks about, nausea and fatigue, and there's 1,000 other things that happen to you. Nosebleeds, apparently that's a thing. Nobody talks about that. Constipation, nobody talks about. There's so many things, but I was lucky enough that I don't know if they had this at that point for you, Anne. I'm not trying to but you can do the email or the app that every week they tell you your baby is the size of a papaya, or it's the size of
honey, at that point, no, my phone didn't do anything. What are you talking
through? Because every week they'd tell me something and I'd be like, wait, you're right, that is happening to me. And then I think it's so weird, but were it not for that technology, then it was, and the real fun thing about that was it'd be like, your baby got a circulatory system today. And then I'd go into the theater and they'd be like, what's happening? And I'd be like, if I'm having a daughter, she's got all her eggs already. So my granddaughter's in me, like all the fun facts in the green room. But Audra, I want to hear about you. Symptoms, craziness, what?
Well, the craze I had with my with Sally, I was having crazy hot chocolate, like chocolate fudge cravings, like all the time for like for hot fudge sundaes, like get it or I will murder you, like poor Will. I mean, it was just like have it in the house and inject it into my veins. I don't know why. But the other things that were happening to me was just the issue with like the fluid on my knees was the biggest one, that they were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the reason I figured out I was pregnant because there was a stomach virus going through the cast because we were in previews, and I was asking everybody, oh yeah, I'm having that. And then I was like, how long did yours last? And they're like, like 2 days. I'm like, God, I still got it. Go. How long? You could see me going, how long did you have this? Like, 2 days. I'm like, I don't think that's what this is. This is something else. So that, just finding out just by like process of elimination. And then of course the boob, swell to, but then for me, it was post-pregnancy. I had to have a walker to walk out of the hospital because something happened where I can't even think of what it's called. It's not diastasis. I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, my hips opened up too much. So it was too painful for me to walk. And I remember them saying, we're going to need a walker. And I just started weeping and I turned to Will and he's like, it's okay, babe. It's okay. We just got to go home. It's all right. I was like, I don't want, he's like, just use the walker to get home. It's okay. And he was having to talk me down. But I realized, that's postpartum. I'm like, 48 hours after giving birth, but just devastated that I've been called geriatric pregnancy the entire time. I had to leave it with a walker. Yeah, so that was not fun.
And you're going to need one of those horns to hear out your ear. And you're going to... So was this, so, because I'm always curious, like who the first person, because I feel like usually the first person you have to tell or tells you you're pregnant is your dresser, because they're the ones that you have to deal with it first before, and it really is before 3 months and before you want to tell anybody. And so I definitely had a secret. Did you all have secret packs with your dressers? God bless dressers. They're the best. They get us through.
They know everything.
Everything.
Step away for a second. My husband's coming in to say goodbye because he's getting ready to get on a plane. So I'm just stepping away for a second. But
Absolutely.
Live theater. I'll be right back.
If you want.
Okay, he can pop in.
Awesome. Will Swenson, everybody. Broadway's Will Swenson. Fabulous. Okay, Anne. So I didn't actually mention before that I did Avenue Q with you. I was lucky enough.
Well, duh. I know that. That's what I'm trying.
They don't know that. So
they don't know that.
I just want to say, is Will coming over? That she is just as good.
Hi, Will Swenson.
How are you?
Momming your Zoom.
I want to know, just from your perspective, you have 1 minute to answer a question.
Yes.
Experience of watching Audra, because we're talking about being pregnant on Broadway stage. How's that when she's got the baby? You can't control you. I bet you would have been like, I'll take the baby for tonight and carry the baby for tonight while you go do the show if I could, but you can't. So how was that as the dad, sort of watching her, especially in the beginning when you couldn't talk about it? How was that experience?
When she was pregnant?
Yeah.
It was awesome. I mean, it was an interesting secret because we felt this certain sort of, sense of dread in that it was like, oh no, leading lady is pregnant. Why do we have to keep this a secret? there was that sort of yuckiness to it, which was a bummer because it was such a beautiful thing and a sort of unexpected miracle. And she glows as a normal rule, and to watch her glow even more and get to like be an expectant mother while making her magic was extra cool. And then just watching her be a badass and like kick her face while she was like, how pregnant, was like, really, you could do that too? That was annoying. I mean, wonderful.
This is my stepson Sawyer. Sorry I brought you in there, but he's saying hi to Family Affair. Sorry, we didn't mean to hijack this. They're going to the airport. So.
We are, yes. You are both incredibly talented ladies, and I have enjoyed getting to work with both of you over the years.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for
you bet. You bet. Take care.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Have a safe flight. Texting you back. So sorry.
I was going to blow a little more sunshine up Anne's shirt and skirt. Say that she is just as amazing a foot away, because I got to play Cape Monster with her Christmas Eve, as she is. This is one of those things where 8 times a week I get to play with puppets and watch Anne Harada sing, and it's just like one of those moments where you're like, I get paid for this? This is my job? How's this?
You should be paying them for that, right?
Exactly. Lots of people were every night.
Right.
Okay. So here's the next thing that I'm curious about, unless anybody has any other thoughts about pregnancy on Broadway pregnancy, which.
Well, I just will say that it is hard. I think what Will brought up is a really good point. When you're hiding it in the beginning and you don't want to let anybody else down, but at the same time, you do want to be able to celebrate.
Yeah.
And you also don't want to, because you're sharing that space with this being that you're growing. So you don't want to put any bad energy surrounding the pregnancy into the pregnancy. So afterwards, I experienced a lot of guilt at how guilty I was feeling while I was pregnant, because I didn't want to let anybody else down. And I don't like that. I've been working on trying to sort of rid myself of what I was feeling at that time, because I didn't want any of that directed at my child. So I just want to say that. And that's something that I think a lot of women have to deal with, but especially performing Broadway mothers in particular have to deal with. Yeah. That's hard.
I agree, because certainly all of us weren't playing people who are pregnant. So we did have to, and there is something about energetically hiding, squeezing in. I always joked that I bet that like 20 years from now, my son will be in like a department store and a Carole King song will come on and he'll be like, why do I feel claustrophobic? I gotta get out of here. It's like, here he was floating around, and then every night he was like this. And it is. And I think a lot about, I guess particularly lately, I think about, we're real tennis fans, but so Serena Williams's career and Roger Federer's career. And so because she had her baby, her last Grand Slam, she won pregnant, and then hasn't been able to come back since, hasn't been able to win since. Whereas like somewhere along the way, Roger Federer had 4 kids and we didn't notice and so it's not anyone's fault. It's just a biological unfairness. But when your job is your body, as opposed to like, I'm even now in the pandemic, I'm envious of women who can do their job, or people who can do their jobs remotely, because I want to go back to work so badly. But it is this way, specifically as parents, that when you are making another human, that it necessarily does affect your ability to do your job, literally, physically. I remember my contract to return, like from my maternity leave, they called it disability leave. And he was like, I know this is crazy. The company manager is like, that's the word they use for it. And I was like, yeah, but words have power, and we should change that. We should change it. Yeah.
I have to say that I didn't have that issue because one, I wasn't doing a period show. So I didn't have to wear like tight little clothes. So what they just ended up doing for me was expanding all my tops. And then, they changed the design of the wedding dress. So it was just sort of like a wrap skirt and a wrap top, that kind of thing. And they didn't seem to care what I looked like at any stage of the procedure. So that literally I was waddling on, in these scenes, and you were like, to get married and stuff. Not one word changed in the script. There was never ever addressed. And a very famous actress, celebrity came backstage and said to me, oh my God, you're not fat, you're pregnant. At which point I was like, I hate you and I wish you would, like. I used to think you were wonderful. Now I don't like you. But like, like I'm just saying, like, absolutely, nobody ever cared. Like, it just wasn't a thing in Avenue Q ever at all. And I think it was just sort of because in that storyline, the Brian and Christmas Eve arc is not really that important. It's just like they get married. Okay, great. She's a big pregnant house. Excellent. They got married. Fine.
First of all, I think you keep diminishing the role you had in that, and it was a very important, very delightful role.
No, I agree, and I loved doing it, but I'm just saying, like, we didn't have to alter anything in the script to talk about it, or, hey, what's up with Christmas Eve? She's looking heavy. Nothing, nobody said boo at any point about that, which I just thought was great.
But I think it also speaks to how cool whoever the powers that be were about it, and certainly let you feel about it, because I'm sure we've all heard horror stories of people who are made to feel really badly about it, and
Right.
So
Somebody
has to repopulate the planet. We've got to do it. We need future Broadway audience members, right? It's not fair that it affects our careers in the ways that it does, but it's got to happen, and how dare anybody make us feel bad about it? So kudos to the team over at Avenue Q. They're lovely people, and it's great. That's great. So, okay, so this leads me to my next question, which is, so you guys are working performers. What has been the hardest part about parenting for you? Audra, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. It's a couple things. I think to be certain careers, because it's so much about self-care. So because your body is your instrument, that self-care and preservation of your body doesn't always necessarily go hand in hand with parenting or doing the type of parenting that I know I want to do, which is I want to be the one that wakes up with you in the morning. I want to be up with you. I'm not slamming anybody who does get a night nurse or anything like that. It's just, and for whatever reasons, I didn't ever want a nanny. I wanted to be the one who was there. When you wanted mommy, I wanted to be the one that answered. So it means not necessarily giving yourself the care or the rest or anything that you need in order to be able, like we're all singers, to have a healthy voice or produce proper sound or, be awake enough to get through your show once you do go back to work. So that and for me, the travel are the hardest things about parenting and doing what we do. And I think it's Renee Fleming who said it. And I think it's so wise. She said, you know what? Someone asked me about, you're making all that money to do what you do. And she said, in terms of parenting, I'm making money to pay for the fact that I do have to be away from my child. Mm-hmm. She's like, because I don't want to be away from my children. Her kids are grown now, but I don't want to. So this money is so that I, can get back to them and do what they need. But, no, you're paying me because I have to leave. That's what's happening here. And I thought that was a really interesting sort of observation. I mean, even like today, I left this morning and I'm going back tomorrow, and I miss Sally so much. And listen, all I wanted was like a night of full sleep. And it's maybe been, I don't know, 12, 13 hours that I've been away from her. And she drove me crazy yesterday. And I got to see her before I left to go to the airport today. And I miss her so much, Yeah. So the hardest part is being away from them, and then what they do to your body, considering you need your body to be in tip-top shape, that we do for a living.
I feel that's so hard. And I only have the one, and he's theoretically old enough to take care of himself, but not really. Being away is super, super hard. And I've been lucky enough to have a bunch of jobs during the pandemic where I've just been out of town, far away out of town for months, not just like 3 nights a week. It's like months and months. And you just feel like you miss out on so much. And I'm the one that gets up with him every day to make sure he goes to school and eats breakfast and all that. Even though I'm usually the one on the show schedule and I, get in late, but that's just, I'm better in the morning than my husband is. And then when I'm away, he has to cover everything, So
Can I ask you very specific, because I'm going to go back to work this year and I'm thinking about that because my kids are 4 and 6. Are you a good napper? Like, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do it.
yes, I nap constantly.
Okay, good. I need to get that. Yeah.
Constantly. And also, I also had the advantage when Elvis was young, my parents literally moved in with us.
I remember that. Yeah.
Like they just left Hawaii and we're like, okay. And like they moved into our spare room. And, I had built-in childcare for years, and I could never have done it. There's just no way I could have pulled it off without that kind of support. And not everybody has that luxury, obviously, and I just look back and I was just like, oh my God, and I went to London. I took everybody to London with me when we did Avenue Q there. And I just basically had, I just used them shamelessly to help me sustain a career,
I just want to hop in really quickly and say that I like you and my mom, when she retired, she moved into the house next door. And so that has been a great help, especially so that when I do have to leave, I still have babysitters from time to time, but that, grandmommy's right there too.
Right.
But I remember another very fantastic, amazing Broadway performer, Rebecca Eichenberger. We all know Rebecca Eichenberger.
Yes.
And her kids are grown, but when we were doing Carousel together, she had one and got pregnant during Carousel with the other. And then as we got to know each other and they grew older, I started saying to her, it's, so you just have a baby and it's great because you get to be home all day with them. And then, and then you go do your show. And she's like, wait till they start school. And that's what I'm thinking about for you, Anika. You're about to go into this thing where all of a sudden you were able to be home all day with them because they were home. But now they're going to go. And then as soon as they get home, you got to go. I'm just saying, prep yourself for it. It becomes.
No, I'm starting to feel a little panicky about it. I'm like, Mondays. We have Mondays. What are we going to do?
You'll get through it. You'll figure it out. But it's an interesting thing. And also, Anne, just before I forget, the other thing I'll say to you about Elvis at this age is they come back. They kind of leave when they turn 13 or so, and you're like, who is this crazy monster, wild thing that I'm living with? It's kind of worse than toddler, but it's like, what's happening with these teenagers?
It's way worse than toddler.
It's crazy and then they start grunting, they stop talking to you. It's like,
right, yeah.
They come back. All 3 of our older ones, they all went in their kind of weird ways during that time, and they've all come back in such a beautiful way. So just hold on. I did want to say that to you. Just really
well, I really appreciate that.
So to lighten things up, I want to ask you, what are the best things about being a parent who is an artist?
Is there one? I'm kidding. I just will say, for me, it's the hard thing for us right now with Sally is we've given birth to a director, and that's a little hard. So we're good at playing, but she directs it all, and she's not a yes and director. She's like a no, but so that's the hard part. But actually, the fun part is like being able to be super silly, creative with her, and seeing kind of our DNA fly out in her in terms of like, she's a real performer. But okay, that's me. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Anne?
Honestly, to let, as he's grown up and can appreciate stuff that I do in some way, when he was little, before he got to see Avenue Q, the puppeteers would like play with him with the puppets on stage.
Oh gosh, of course.
And watching that kind of interaction was just so precious. And, he still thinks about it, obviously. And so in ways, like being able to share parts of your life with him, as he's grown up and can get enthused about it. He's going to participate in the spring musical review at school this year, which we didn't think there was going to be an in-person show because of COVID. And then at the last minute, the teachers went, oh no, we have to do something. So they're writing a Sondheim review. Oh, I'm like, really, you're writing a Sondheim review? What a great idea.
It's the time.
But they're, he's gonna perform. He's excited about it. I'm excited for him. So, it's nice to sort of be able to share that kind of interest. And I just feel like I've been given so many amazing opportunities because of my job, so that he can share in some of them has been wonderful,
Yeah. Okay. So, last year at some point I got an audition and it was for a horror film and I was like, ooh, fun, horror film. That sounds like a fun thing to do. And then I started to read the script and like 2 pages in, there was a flashback of my character. Something really gruesome happened to her. And I just thought, oh, absolutely. There's no way I want this image to exist in the world for even when they're grown up, for my children to have that picture of that happening to their mom. I was like, no, absolutely not. I'm out. I'm not even, no.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious how becoming a parent has affected your career choices.
Well, I have to ask Audra because she has more interesting career choices.
Well, Anika, you're making me feel a little bit like me and Will are bad parents because we just did this TV show called The Bite where Will turns into a zombie, and then at the end he's like my lover and he turns into a zombie. And he realizes that he's turning and he's trying to kill me. And so in the end, he ends up like killing himself on a knife that I have. So this is going to be great that this is the world for
judgments in that. It was worse what was going to happen to me. So just.
I mean, the fun thing, hopefully she'll never see it, or she'll be like 40 and she'll be like, oh yeah, because we did bring home all like the gore and the tattoos for like the zombie and we would put them on her and she'd be like, ah, so we tried to make it fun in that way. And obviously she didn't watch it. And I will say, like, Zoe refused to see, she saw Porgy and Bess and she was like, never again. So they've made some choices based on some of the roles we've done. There's been just some stuff where like, yeah, you probably shouldn't come see this. But I don't think there's been anything so far that I've done that I wouldn't have chosen to do. But yeah, I don't think so, because like I said, poor Sally's got video now of her mother basically accidentally killing her zombie father. So we're the greatest parents.
So. Yeah.
But he's a zombie. He's different.
He deserved it.
Yeah.
I have a question here from one of our audience members who is Kenita Miller, and I believe must be Broadway's Kenita Miller. Yes. Hi, Kenita. She wants to know if you guys would want your kids to follow in your footsteps. Broadway babies.
I cannot imagine that this child would ever make that choice. I don't sense the drive or the desire, but whatever he chooses to do, of course, I would be happy to support that, because when I think of what I must have seemed like to my parents, what a bizarre alien creature I must have been to them. And they never blinked. They were like, yeah, okay, do whatever you want. I was like, oh, great. So sure, whatever you want, do whatever you want. I'll support you if that's truly your passion and your desire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audra?
Yeah, no, we would be absolute hypocrites if we were to say to our kids, don't do it. And I think if I were a betting person, I would say possibly 3, but at least 2 out of our 4 kids will most likely go into this for a living or pursue it. But maybe actually, I think probably definitely 3. Definitely 3. And then I guess the other one's going to be the one that like has the real job for the rest of us. 'Cause he's got this family of like carny folk. Take care of all these, theater folk in my family. I got to have the real job and take care of them. But we would just want them to be happy. I mean, they certainly have grown up with a great, healthy respect and immersion in theater and performance, and they love it. And that's all we wanted to give them, is to make sure they had, the respect and the joy and the love for it. And as a result, I do think 3 of them are probably going to pursue it.
Yeah. I know. Well, in the genes, man. I want to ask this, but before we run out of time, I want to talk about this, which is, as an African American woman and an Asian American woman, I would love to know how much of the conversation in the arts world, or even in the world, about diversity, equity, and inclusion is coming home, and how, and or how much do the conversations that you're having with your kids at home about race and representation, how much does that come back into your work? How much flow is there? And what's that like?
Well, when we were just having this conversation about doing this Sondheim review, and I said, so he was like, so I'm going to be in that big Tonight quintet, but I think I'm going to end up being a jet. I was like, you're going to be a jet? I was like, you're Asian, you're still a person of color. He's like, Mom, have you been to my school? It's like, in my school, I'm white. And it's kind of true. Like, if you had to like break down the kids by, like what group you think they would most belong to, he just feels very strongly, like, because his school is so diverse and, inclusive, like he qualifies more as like one of the whites. And I'm like, I look at him, I go like, that's not possible, but I think that's interesting and awesome that like that he's so whatever, it doesn't matter, but like, this is how they see me. And just for myself, in terms of taking, or like even taking auditions, like you get the audition and you decide, am I going to self-tape for this? Right. And I read the script and I go like, I don't want to, because I feel like this is this makes me feel yucky inside for whatever reason, and lots of times it's just because I think the point of view of this is not healthy or fair, or what I want to be putting out into the world, and I feel lucky enough at this point in the game to be able to say to my agents, pass, not worth it to me. Yeah. And there was definitely a point in time where I was not like that. I would audition for anything and everything. And I still feel that I do too much of this sort of thing, but it's because I'm trying so hard to get health insurance, because that's my job in the family. So it's like every line on a TV show is health insurance, to me. But like, yeah, I just feel right now, in a world, I feel like everything's changing, like we're in this big kind of new place, and that every decision now that we make does have significance. I used to think, well, who cares if I do some shitty part, because no one's ever going to see it and nobody cares. It's like, but now I feel very much more like, but it's part, I know that I'm doing it and I'm putting it out in the world, and I don't want to be responsible for that anymore. Yeah. If I have some control over it, I'm going to have some control over it. That's all.
Yeah, it's the conversation sort of, it's flowing into the house, and it's in our conversations. I mean, and we're a multi-racial, multicultural family. The boys are obviously Caucasian, and Sally and Zoe are biracial, and so the boys are one ethnicity, and then have a stepsister and a sister who are Black, and then a stepmom who's Black. So race and conversations about diversity and inclusion and what they're experiencing and what their experience in school is of it, and when they see racism and all of that is very much a topic that lives in our house. And now as the older two, are in their 20s and, they're gone most of the year and then they come home, the conversations that they are having and the things that they are witnessing and seeing, they're bringing that in. I mean, as well, not only just with race, but even as they sort of educate us about, no, mom, they're, non-binary. You don't say she for that person, so they're kind of educating us in a way too. So we're just trying to keep a super open line of communication and keeping them. We're not silencing we're not censoring any of the conversations we're having as things happen with George Floyd or whatever. We're keeping it age appropriate for Sally, but with the rest of the kids, we're discussing it and in the way that Sally can understand things and that's right for her. We're discussing it with her because it's a part of what our family is and the makeup of our family. So, not only is, for my stepsons, their sisters are, their family. So they have to be, so they would protect them anyway as family members, but they have to be allies too, so it's all those conversations are constantly flowing because they have to be.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys. We have like 3 minutes left and we always end Meet the Parent with the all-important lightning round. So, Anne and Audra, there are no wrong answers in the lightning round, only too slow in the lightning round. And now for the first time, we're gonna experiment. We're gonna have music. We're gonna have tense music for you for the lightning round. Let's see how this goes, okay? Glenn, are we ready with the music? Okay. And go. Would you hire Christmas Eve to be your child's therapist, yes or no? Anne?
Yes.
Audra?
Hell yeah.
Do your kids like it when you sing to them? Audra?
No.
Anne?
No.
What age were Zoe or Elvis when you stopped being any help at all with their homework?
5.
8.
What's your favorite place you ever took your kids?
Well, my favorite place was Harry Potter World or whatever that thing is called. He didn't care, but I had the greatest time.
Oh yeah, Harry Potter World, Universal Studios.
Universal Studios.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your kids' favorite place you ever took them?
Ooh.
London.
Liked London. I still think Hawaii is more popular.
I just changed my answer. Hawaii.
When I say Legos, how do you feel?
Ouch.
No.
And lastly, which one of these of Audra's shows would best describe your parenting experience? Carousel, Masterclass, or The Good Fight? Audra, go.
My parenting experience, whether how I was parented or how I parent.
There's no time, Audra. There's no time.
Oh my God, all 3.
Fair enough.
Masterclass.
All right. Okay. And I am being told that all of your answers are correct and it's a tie and you both win. Congratulations.
That made me nervous.
Thank you. Good. Why not? Thank you, Anne and Audra, for being our guests tonight. Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you, Glenn, our stage manager. Thank you, Nicole and Andres, for all of the help. Thank you to Andrew and all the good people who are working tirelessly over at New York City Children's Theater. And thank you to you for watching. If you enjoyed this evening, it is going to live on forever on YouTube. So please feel free, starting tomorrow, to share it far and wide. Our last Meet the Parent of the season, we're very excited, is Monday, April 25th. It will be featuring Cameron Crowe and Tom Kitt, the writers of the show that is coming to Broadway this summer, Almost Famous the Musical, that I happen to be playing the mom in. So please join us for that. Yes. And so if you want to be sure not to miss it, you can literally go right now to our website and register for it. Or while you're there, you can sign up for the New York City Children's Theater mailing list and you will never miss anything. Thank you again, everyone, so much, and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.